Hello, my name is back to another time show. I'm JJ Booksquare, and today we are in a book corner with small books talking about our June wrap up. Essentially, these are all the small books. These are 25 different books that I read this month. I'm just gonna reach into this little bag, pull out a small book, and tell you about it. There is a DNF in here. There's several 2s, some 3s, some 4s, and some 5s. There is one book in here that I cannot tell you the rating of. You will probably find it out this month. I don't know exactly. Tamjingla. June was a very month filled with gay novels or queer novels, I should say. Not so much gay particular. This is a sci-fi novel that came out in May or April, pre-new release, about our main character. They went to jail in the cyberpunk world for a heist, gets pulled out early, and then gets offered to do another heist with the person who sent them to jail. And because of the situation that they are a part of and they're in their families, and they decide to take the offer and to do this whole thing. Yeah, I gave it a 3.75. Very heisty, and I felt like it was pretty satisfying, if not a little predictable, but like in a good way. I liked it. I'm a fan. If We Were a Movie did not live up to the cover. This is going to be the first of a few of these that we talk about. If We Were a Movie about these two girls, they work in this owned theater showing these black classics and stuff. There's a rivalry, but there's also like a flirtation going on, and that's really what it is. And if that sounds interesting to you in the summer before college, and that is what I recommend. It was a 3.5, very YA romancy. Just wasn't my thing. We have Artie the Wolf, which is interesting, which I'll show you. Artie the Wolf. Artie the Wolf, I want to say I gave a 3. I did. I don't know why it's his color, but that's fine. 3.5 for Artie the Wolf. This is an allegory for a lot of different things, but this is about a girl who is, when she's about 13 years old, when she gets her period, she realizes that she is part werewolf and she can change, and she ends up meeting this one group of people who are also shapeshifters, and it's about her journey and her conversations and stuff, and that's really what it follows. If that's of interest to you, it is middle grade, then there you go. Wish I had more for you. It's a little queer. It's just like a little bit. We have Rather Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame. This is about a female dragon hunter. She is notorious. She essentially, when she's a young kid, ends up getting brought into these ranks to do this. And so she is here. Essentially, I guess she cuts off the head of the dragon when she's like a child. And her mom is out of town in this fantasy world. And her dad's like, the only thing I know to do is send you to the guild. So that's what he ends up doing. And he sends her to the guild. And she begins a very high class warrior. And this warrior is kind of like the Mandalorian. They can't take out their helmets or anything. And she ends up meeting a queen that she grows very fond of for a period of time while she's waiting on a dragon to appear, is all I will say. Very, very much enjoyed. When it comes to bigger than life, like queer fiction and stuff, I think this was phenomenal. This is perfect. It's novella length, and so it's nice and short and sweet. It's a 4.5. It gets steamy. It does everything I really wanted it to, and so I would recommend this broadly. I think if it sounds interesting, I think you're gonna have a great time. This is Saga Volume 12. I'm pretty sure Saga Volume 12, which is the latest one in the Saga verse, I gave a 4. And this is just subjectively based on what I give the issues. I rate a full graphic novel just like I would rate a short story collection for each individual issue, even though they're only telling a portion of a story, and then that's the rating for the graphic novel collection. So I got a 4 based on the 5 issues that were in here. I'm enjoying where the story's going, but I do think we have slowed down significantly with the amount of pacing that we were doing before the big break, and now we're on another medium break, and I just don't know. I don't know how much longer I can withstand Hazel as a character only aging barely because of how the story is told. However, I love Saga, and I continue to recommend it even though I don't know the ending. But in my defense, almost every time I read a Saga, they're between a 4 and a 5 star, which is pretty highly rated for like 114 issues of a graphic novel. Sure, they have their moments. We have Gaijins. Gaijins is like queer as folk for the Asian community. Essentially, we follow one of them being relatively new to the scene and trying to understand. The only reason why this is a 2.5 or 2, 2.5 is because I read it as an audiobook, not knowing it was a graphic novel, and I hated my experience. Nothing to do with the story itself. Would I recommend it? I just didn't like the experience I had, which I did talk about in my review because it's important. It's about these like 4 or 5 gays in like, I want to say San Francisco. It's about their lives and their intertwining and stuff, and I feel like a lot of people would really like it, so I would recommend it. I just would recommend it in its proper formatting. Unless you're someone who likes a full audiobook and likes hearing the wind in the background and things like that. I'm not It's just not me. I'm not that person. Alright, this is one I cannot tell you the rating of. However, I can tell you kind of what it's about. And that's Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a 5-star prediction. This is the second to last 5-star prediction I need to read of the year, which is crazy. I will tell you that it's about a woman in the 80s who joins a space race. And it's also about a different crew trying to survive many years later. And it's the two stories and how they're colliding. And that's all I can really tell you about it. But George Thinks When He Sits Still by Caroline Bell. This is a novel about cats and what they think about when they're sitting still in your house. It's very cute. It's very cute, very lovely. I adored this. This is a 5 stars. There's one poem in here that broke me. Like, I was sobbing at work. It can remind me so much of my kitty that passed away not that long ago. That's what this one is. It's just literally what do you think a cat would think about in his own room. So we have Murder by Memory by Olivia White. This is a murder mystery novella, sci-fi novella, 100 pages long. It's about a world where you can get transported into a different body when your body dies with the same memories through a book, and the main character gets transferred into a body that has recently either enacted a murder or has been murdered. I can't remember what the result of this is, but she's trying to solve. I think it's someone who's been enacted into a murder and she's trying to solve her murder. I think it's the plan here. I thoroughly enjoyed myself with this as well. It was a 4-star, would recommend. Okay, the next one we have to talk about is Cuckoo by Gretchen Felker Martin. This is an author that I will continue to pick up books from. However, I'm really disappointed in myself for putting them in my 25 and 25. To be fair, I had no idea this book existed. I did little research before that video, which is really showing. I should not have put them in a 25, is what it is. This I gave a 3.25. Objectively, I think it's a story that needs to be told. It follows a group of different queer people who they are get sent off into this conversion therapy camp, and it's about the brutality of it all. It's extreme horror, so it's very, very brutal. And in my opinion, I personally loved it best when it wasn't that. Just because it's a whole thing. I don't want to get into it, but I do think it's very important to talk about. I think they did a great job, and I think anybody who goes through this experience who can handle the hurling stuff that the author puts these characters through, I think it'd take away a lot, and it could be like a total hit for them. I just don't know how I felt about it. So yeah, I went on a 3.25. And that's where we're at with Cuckoo. We have Watch Me by Tara Mafi. This is one of the books that took me by surprise this year because I had no idea that I was going to absolutely adore this novel because I didn't really like the Shatter Me series. And I read this Road to 25 and 25 as well. And my brain was like, oh my god, I'm going to hate it because I didn't like that series. And then another book, it's another one of those books where I was kind of annoyed that it was in my 25 and 25 because that video never came out. So me reading 13 books for you never saw, and I didn't really talk about Shatter Me on my channel, but here we are talking about the sequel series. Watch Me follows 2 people. I can't really tell you too much about it. It is a sequel series. In my opinion, it's not a companion. It's a direct sequel series. You need to read the first to really understand the nuances and what they're trying to do here. This is not YA also, in my opinion. This is straight adult. Some people will come at me for that. Some people think Shatter Me itself is adult. I felt like this was way worse than that, a lot more adult themes. Also, if you're someone who struggles with an ED, I do not recommend this book at all, like the highest of levels of unrecommendation. But I gave it a 4.25. I really like the characters, I really like the words, and up until like the last like 25 to 30%, I felt like Tara Mafi was doing something really cool here. And then the ending happened, and I was so annoyed. I was just like, why do you go back to your bad ways? Because like truly, there were some things that happened in here that's so Shatter Me coded that I'm like, you could have just not. And I think we would all be okay with it. Oh, this is a disappointment. If I Told You I'd Have to Kiss You by May Marvel. This is a novel that truly disappointed me on so many levels. It's supposed to be like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but make it sapphic or make it lesbian or make it queer, whatever you want to say. And they took one element of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and said, okay. And then they're like, what about spies? So those two, that's not the element that I feel like they took from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, by the way. Those are 2 separate elements that they combined into one and called it Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And in my opinion, based on the TV show, depending on what they're trying to go off of here, based on the TV show and the movie, they took the least important element. The element I didn't care about the most. So call me disappointed. Also, The Spy is good. There's objectively nothing wrong with it. However, it's slightly predictable. I can't really fault them for that from my own personal discoveries, but I will say it's a little predictable. The relationship is kind of cool in a way, but yeah, a 3.5. Highly disappointed for a novel. God, I was so looking forward to it. Like I had such good hope of failure. I guess. Broposal was another one that I was really looking forward to because I liked the concept of it quite a bit. It was a 2.5, however. So essentially, this follows our two main characters. One is bisexual and one is straight. The bisexual is currently engaged to this woman, and then the straight had recently just broken up with somebody and gotten fired. He is here on a work visa, and so he does believe that he's going to get deported. And that plays such a huge factor into this novel of ICE, which I feel like is really prevalent and really a great thing to talk about in today's time and society. But I feel like the book did it horribly. In my opinion, I feel like the book talked about all these very important discussions in a horrible way. I do think the friends, the lovers, cute relationship that was brimming in the middle of it all between these two boys was adorable, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. But oh my god, everything else and the 50% mark literally took the story from being like a 3.5 to like a 2 so fast. Has one of my least favorite tropes of all time. First book I read this month is Everybody Wants to Rule the World Except Me. This is by Danjo Wexler. This is a Dobby novel. This is the second book. This is the second part of the duology. I did land on a 4.5 for this dual, or for the second book. The first book was a 5. Dobby is a character that I adore. Dobby in the first book, so I'll talk about that one, not the sequel, because obviously for obvious reasons. Dobby is somebody in the first book who has lived many, many lives. She ends up being set into a Groundhog Day situation in a fantastical world. She is from our world, and somehow she is transported and placed into this world where she lives over and over and over again to become the chosen one. And in the first book, after 1,000 or so years, she decides she wants to become the Dark Lord instead, and it's about her journey. I would highly recommend it. I really had a great time with it. I have Shout Loud My Head? I can't remember if that's what it is. This is a game BL manga about two musicians, and this is one of the spiciest mangas I've ever read, so I gave it a 4. Simply for the last 20 pages. And that's all I will say on the matter. Then I read Void, Dark Empty Void. This follows a group of scientists this is a graphic novel. This follows a group of scientists as they have created a black hole, and they realize that this black hole is going to turn into a massive one. They got to go into their side to shut it down and make their way back. And that's the experience, but it is a cosmic horror, which is one of my favorite type of horrors of all time, and I enjoyed myself. It was a 4. The next one we're going to talk about is Pride or Die by CL Monologue. This is another YA thriller. This is about a woman. She ends up getting injured in the hallway, close to being brutally murdered, and the people who work or who are part of the Pride for School thing, this club that is presented, are all accused of this crime. This girl is known to being a bully and things, and the principal is out to get them. And so because the principal's out to get them, the cops are also out to get them. I was really annoyed during the majority of this book. I gave it a 2.75. I also don't think the reveal was that revealing, if I remember correctly. I don't really remember, but I do really remember not enjoying myself. Wow, trying to solve that murder. We have How to Survive a Slasher by Justine Marcelo Waynes. This follows a town that's already been attacked twice before. We're following the daughter of someone who lived through those attacks as well. And in this whole process, someone comes back as the same killer all those years ago, and they deliver this book to our main character that's basically inciting that these are going to happen, and then they start to happen from the novel. It kind of verges off into 2 different areas and stuff. It was a 4.25. I really enjoyed myself. It's very predictable in a lot of ways, but I will not lie. I liked what I read. Great Gatsby by S. Scott Fitzgerald. Random reread for sure that I decided to pick up this month. I gave it a 4, just like every other time. My thoughts and opinions on The Great Gatsby on like a very small, not super deep level is that it's not about the American dream, and that Daisy and everybody else's relationship inside this novel is not exactly what it seems. I have really some big opinions that pisses a lot of people off when it comes to The Great Gatsby, so if you want me to talk about those in a separate video, I totally can. However, that's not the place for this. Just know that if you've never read it before, I would recommend. I do think there are things to take away in 2025 from The Great Gatsby, which makes it a classic. Of Stephen King's If It Bleeds, I read The Life of Chuck, which is a short story that takes place inside the short story collection by Stephen King. So I did not read the whole entire book. I only read the one, which I gave a 4.5. I felt like it was gorgeous, but it's very much like the movie. So if you saw the movie, you don't really need to read the book. There really isn't anything to take away. Honestly, I felt like Stephen King's way of writing kind of hurried the premise a little bit. And I felt like Mike Flanagan juiced it up, so I like the movie just a tad bit better in that regard, but still really good. I don't even know how to describe this to you, so I would recommend Life of Chuck, but I recommend the movie more with Tom Hiddleston and several other people that we all love and adore. Has a really interesting story structure as well, which I always love when an author or a movie plays with the story structure. We have Bunny. I didn't like Bunny by Mona Lod. Bunny is like The Craft meets Heathers meets something else. I gave it a 2.75. We follow our main character. She gets developed into this bunny world. All these people call themselves Bunny, and they realize that they might be doing some other stuff, and she becomes a part of it. And I really didn't like my experience, and I will not be reading the sequel. And I feel bad because I wanted to love it more than what I did. Love at Second Sight by F.T. Lukens. This is too young for my own personal liking, but I like the fact that it exists. Okay, we have done one of those. I landed on a 3.75 for this, and for a lot of this novel, it was a 4, but there's elements of it that are just frustrating. We follow a main character who is 15, who has a very cute little crush on this other person as well, which is nice. And the story is that they are normies in a town of supernatural that's openly supernatural. His best friend is a witch, and early on in the novel, he realizes that he can see the future. It's a very special gift in this community. A lot of other things, but that's what the premise is, and he's trying to solve a murder before it happens. And that's this. I just didn't really like how young they were. Some of the things also didn't make sense for the age range either, so I would just love to talk to the author and figure out why some of these choices were made. But I would recommend The Z Word. The Z Word was recommended to me by Books and Llama unintentionally. She read one of my favorite books and she had put this in a recommendation with it. The Z Word was a 3.75. This is a story about a disease that gets released into the world, particularly in the queer community, that is a rage disease. They're not trying to eat you per se, but they're also not trying to let you survive either. Kind of like zombies, kind of like 28 years later, that type of same vibe, but it's only really affecting the gay community of this town, which is really interesting. And we're following some very unlikable people as they're trying to survive in this, and it's really hard to root for them or to even enjoy the company of them because of how unlikable they are. But I really like the twists and turns, and it did get pretty violent, which I also enjoyed. It was not as action-packed as I would personally like for a zombie story, but also, like, I think it did a serviceable job. Once again, I landed on a 3.75, so yeah. We'll talk about Out of Air by Rachel Ress. It's also my 25 and 25. I have a specialty for really liking or really wanting to love underwater stuff. I love the idea of being underwater, being submerged. I think it's so cool, and I've been addicted to it for several years now. And so I typically just grab those books. This follows a group of people, cave divers, teenagers. They're about to go off onto their college years, and they go into like the Calais Islands or something like that on this trip, and they end up finding a cave full of magical things that end up not being so magical in the end. It is a 4-star. There's a few other things going on, but I really liked it. Wilder Girls is one of those comp titles for this, and I do believe if you liked Wilder Girls in a more straighter way, I think this could be for you. And then lastly, the last book we're going to talk about today is If We Survive This, Raquel Marie. This follows a group of people, two siblings, as they're trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. This is more of like a traditional zombie apocalypse. Essentially, they believe that their dad is at this cabin that they used to go to when they're younger, and they want to get out of this house that they have been stuck in, and so they end up leaving, and it's about their experience on the road. I had a pretty good time. It wasn't perfect. A really low type of story, low stakes, low action up until like a point, and it goes from like a 7 or like I would say like a 6 to like a 13, which is fascinating. But I gave it a 3.75. Guys, so those 25 books I read in the month of June. I like the fact that all of them were basically gay. I love that about it. Honestly, truly, 10 out of 10. I had some really good favorites in there, but please let me know what your guys' least and most favorite of the year or this month was. Also, did you hit your goal? Did you have a goal? All those things. Let me know in the comments down below. I'll tell you all next time. Thanks for watching and goodbye.